I am 109 years old, and I still do the New York Times crossword in pen every morning. Not pencil. Pen. That means when I put an answer down, I commit to it. I can tell you what I had for breakfast last Tuesday: oatmeal with blueberries and a little cinnamon. Same as always. I can tell you the quadratic formula without blinking. And I can tell you the names of the 6 students I failed in 45 years of teaching. There were only 6. I remember every one of them. People hear that and they laugh. Or they shake their heads like I'm some kind of miracle. They ask me, "Edna, what's your secret to brain health? How do you stay so sharp at your age?" And I tell them the same thing every time. There is no secret. There is only what you choose to do every single day. Now let me tell you something I've seen that most people don't notice until it's too late. I have watched men and women disappear while they were still breathing. Their hearts were beating. Their bodies were sitting in front of me. But their minds were already gone. And the worst part, it didn't happen overnight. It happened slowly, quietly, comfortably. The biggest mistake people make about aging and dementia prevention is believing their brain will take care of itself. They think cognitive decline is bad luck, bad genes, bad timing. They think staying mentally sharp after 60 is something that just happens or doesn't. It doesn't. Your brain does not run on hope. It runs on use. And if you assume it will stay strong without effort, that assumption will cost you more than you can imagine. My sister Helen was 2 years older than me. She was faster than me at everything when we were girls. Faster at math. Faster at running. Faster at holding a grudge. She remembered every birthday. Every recipe our mother ever made. Every neighbor who ever borrowed sugar and forgot to return it. If you had asked anyone in 1955 which one of us would stay sharp longer, they would have picked Helen without hesitation. That's why what happened to her still sits in my chest. She was in her early 80s when the forgetting started. Little things at first. Misplaced keys. Missed appointments. We all told ourselves it was normal aging. That's what people say when they don't want to look too closely. Then one afternoon I walked into her living room, and she looked up at me with polite confusion and said, "Are you the nurse?" I laughed at first. I thought she was joking. Helen did not joke. She kept staring at me like I was someone who had wandered into the wrong house. She did not know my name. I stood there, holding my purse, waiting for recognition to come back into her eyes. It never did. I drove home that day and sat in my car in the driveway for 20 minutes before I could turn off the engine. I wasn't crying. I wasn't dramatic. I was doing the math. 10 years. That's how long it took for her to disappear completely. 10 years of watching her body stay and her mind fade piece by piece. By the end, she didn't know her own children. This woman who once ran circles around everyone was gone before she was buried. Half the people I grew up with went the same way. My best friend Margaret, my cousin Stanley, I watched them lose their minds before they lost their pulse. And that was the day I made a decision. I would not go quietly. I would not assume my brain would protect itself. If there was work to be done to prevent cognitive decline, I was going to do it, whether I felt like it or not. Here is the part nobody likes to hear. Most people do not wake up one morning and decide to neglect their brain. They drift into it. At 40. At 50. Even at 60. You look in the mirror and you still recognize yourself. You're working, driving, paying bills, remembering passwords. Dementia sounds like something that happens in nursing homes, not in kitchens that look like yours. You tell yourself you have time. You tell yourself you'll start reading more after retirement. You'll start walking after things settle down. You'll focus on healthy aging once the kids are grown, or the mortgage is paid off. That is the illusion. Aging does not send you a warning letter. Cognitive decline does not knock politely. It accumulates in small, comfortable decisions. Another hour of television. Another year without learning anything new. Another excuse to skip the walk because it's too hot, too cold, too late. People say to me, "Well, Edna, maybe it's just genetics." Genetics load the gun. Habits pull the trigger. I've lived long enough to watch patterns form. The ones who assumed their brain health would maintain itself slowly narrowed their lives. Same routines, same conversations, same thoughts. The brain likes novelty, challenge, friction. Without it, it conserves energy. And when the brain starts conserving too much, it begins letting things go. First the names, then the dates, then the stories. The mistake isn't getting older. The mistake is assuming your mind will stay strong without deliberate effort. If you believe staying mentally sharp after 60 is automatic, you are already behind. And I am not telling you this to frighten you. I am telling you because I have seen what happens when people wait for motivation. Motivation does not protect memory. Action does. The first thing I tell anyone who asks me about brain health and dementia prevention is simple. Use your brain every single day. And not for easy things. I don't mean scrolling headlines on a phone. I don't mean watching the evening news and nodding along. I mean work. The kind that makes you pause. The kind that makes you slightly uncomfortable. I do the New York Times crossword. And I do the Saturday one when I can get it. Because it is harder. I do it in pen because it forces commitment. No erasing. No guessing and backing out. Thinking requires friction. And friction keeps the mind alive. I had a colleague years ago. Brilliant woman. Retired at 62. She told everyone she was going to finally relax. For the first year, she read a little. By the third year, she mostly watched television. By the fifth, she stopped finishing books because they felt tiring. when I saw her at 70. She struggled to follow a simple conversation about politics. She said she just didn't have the energy to think about complicated things anymore. The brain had adapted to comfort. I also know a man who started learning piano at 71. Slowly. Badly at first. But he practiced. His fingers stumbled. His timing was terrible. And he kept going. At 85, he still reads history books and argues about them. That is not luck. That is sustained cognitive engagement. Your brain is like a muscle, but it is also like a habit. It grows toward what you repeatedly ask of it. If you only ask it to consume, it will consume. If you ask it to solve, to question, to remember, to calculate, it will strengthen those pathways. Do math problems. Learn a language. Play chess. Read something you disagree with and force yourself to understand why. Your brain does not retire just because you do. And if you treat retirement like a permanent vacation from thinking, your mind will begin packing its bags long before you expect it to. Now let me tell you something that surprises people. Thinking alone is not enough. You can sit in a quiet room and read all day. And that is good. But it is not the same as dealing with another human being. The second rule for staying mentally sharp after 60 is this: do not isolate yourself. I know people are exhausting. Believe me. After 45 years of teaching teenagers algebra, I understand exactly how exhausting people can be. They interrupt. They argue. They misunderstand. They forget what you just said. But all of that is exercise for your brain. Conversation is mental weightlifting. You have to follow the thread. Read facial expressions. Remember what was said 10 minutes ago. Adjust your response in real time. When you isolate, you remove that friction. And without friction, the mind softens. There was a widow on my block years ago. Sweet woman. Lost her husband at 78. For a while, she still came to church and to the grocery store. Then she started ordering everything to her house. Said it was more convenient. She stopped attending book club because parking was annoying. She stopped answering phone calls because she was too tired. Within 3 years, she barely left her living room. When I visited, she struggled to keep track of what we were talking about. Not because she was unintelligent, but because her brain had not been challenged by human unpredictability in a long time. Silence is comfortable, and comfort is dangerous. I play cards every Thursday with 3 other women. We argue about rules. We tease each other. Sometimes we get irritated. Good. Irritation means I am engaged. I tutor neighborhood kids who are failing algebra. They make me explain things in new ways. I argue with my grandson about politics. He thinks he's right. He usually isn't. But he forces me to defend my positions with facts. Not just opinions. That keeps my reasoning sharp. Loneliness is not just sad. It is harmful to cognitive health. The research on social isolation and brain decline is clear. But I didn't need a study to see it. I watched it happen. You do not have to like everyone. You do not have to attend every party. But you do need people. Your brain needs other brains. And if you cut yourself off from them because it feels easier will eventually become emptier. Now I am 109 years old. I am not running marathons. I am not lifting heavy weights. But I move. Every single day. I move. And if you care about brain health, about dementia prevention, about staying mentally sharp after 60, you need to understand this. Your brain does not float separately from your body. It is fed by it. It depends on it. I walk around the block, sometimes twice if the weather cooperates. In the winter, I put on my coat and gloves and go anyway. In the summer, I go early before the heat settles in. I walk to the corner store. I walk to the mailbox. I walk even when I would rather sit. I had a friend who believed once you hit 80, you had earned the right to sit. And sit he did. Recliner. Television. Hours and hours every day. Within a few years, his posture collapsed inward. His conversations grew shorter. His curiosity shrank. The body slows down, and the mind follows. I do not pretend to understand every piece of the science behind blood flow and neuroplasticity. I am not a neurologist, but I have lived long enough to see that the people who kept moving kept thinking. Movement sends a message to your system that you are still participating in life. 10 minutes, 15 minutes. It does not have to be heroic. It has to be consistent. Gardening, walking, light stretching. Anything that reminds your brain that it is attached to a living, active body. If you park yourself permanently on the couch, your brain will eventually assume the rest of you has retired from living, and it will adjust accordingly. Now let's talk about the boring part. The part nobody wants to hear because it is not glamorous and it does not sound profound. Sleep. And food. If you care about healthy aging, about brain health, about preventing cognitive decline, you cannot treat sleep like it is optional. I go to bed at the same time every night. 10 o'clock. I wake up at 6. 7 days a week. I do not stay up late just this once. I do not sleep until noon on Sundays. Your brain likes rhythm. It likes predictability. While you sleep, your brain clears out waste. The build-up from thinking and moving and living all day. That is not folklore. That is research. But it only works if you actually sleep. You cannot run on 4 or 5 hours for years and then act surprised when your memory starts slipping. Your brain cleans itself at night, but only if you give it the time. And then there is food. I grew up Polish. We ate pierogi and kielbasa and plenty of things cooked in butter. I still enjoy good food. But over the years, I learned something simple. Sugar clouds the mind. Processed junk drags you down. I eat vegetables, fish, olive oil, oatmeal, real food, not perfect food, real food. I cut back on sweets long ago, not because someone on television told me to, but because I noticed how I felt afterward. Sluggish, fogged. You don't get to abuse your body for 40 years and then expect your brain to forgive you at 70. Your brain runs on what you feed it. Feed it garbage. It runs like garbage. This is not complicated. It is discipline. And discipline, unlike luck, is something you can practice every day. Now I am going to tell you the part that matters most. You can do crosswords. You can walk every day. You can eat your vegetables and sleep 8 hours. But if you wake up in the morning and there is nothing that requires you, nothing that expects you, nothing that depends on you, your brain receives a very dangerous message. The message is simple. You are no longer necessary. And when the brain believes it is no longer necessary, it begins conserving. It begins dimming the lights. When my husband Walter died, people treated me like I was next. They brought casseroles and soft voices, and that look people get when they think your life is essentially finished. You'll just rest now. One woman told me, "Rest from what? From being alive?" The first morning after the funeral. The house was unbearably quiet. I sat at the kitchen table longer than usual. I could feel the weight of it pressing on my chest. Grief is heavy. It does not ask permission. It sits there and waits to see what you will do. And in that silence, I understood something clearly. If I let this house become my whole world, it would shrink me. Not all at once. Slowly. I would wake up later. Read less. Speak less. Think less. Grief will sit on your chest, but it does not get to sit in your chair. So I stood up. I kept tutoring. I joined the library board. I kept showing up to card night. I argued with my grandson about politics even when I was tired. Because when someone needs you to explain algebra, your brain has to organize information. When someone expects you at a meeting, your brain has to plan. When someone challenges your opinion, your brain has to defend itself. Purpose is not a luxury. It is a neurological requirement. I have seen too many retirees fade because they believed retirement meant withdrawal. They sold the business, closed the office, and quietly stepped out of relevance. Within a few years, their conversations grew thinner. Their curiosity dried up. When you stop being needed, your brain starts turning off the lights. It does not matter if your purpose is grand. It does not have to be saving the world. It can be teaching a child to read, volunteering once a week, caring for a garden, showing up for your family. But it must matter to you, because if nothing pulls you forward, your mind will begin drifting backward. Now let me ask you something most people avoid because it is uncomfortable. If you lose your memory, if your thoughts scatter, if you cannot recognize the people who love you, who are you then? We like to believe we are our careers, our houses, our achievements. But strip away your memories and what remains? Your brain is not just an organ. It is your story. It holds your childhood, your first job, the sound of your mother's voice, the smell of your father's coat, the day you fell in love, the mistakes you regret, the lessons you learned. When cognitive decline steals memory, it steals identity. I watched my sister's identity dissolve long before her body did. She was still sitting in her favorite chair. She was still breathing. But the woman who remembered every birthday and every argument was gone. That is what people misunderstand about dementia, prevention. It is not only about avoiding inconvenience. It is about preserving selfhood. You spend decades building a life, collecting experiences, shaping opinions, and yet many people treat brain health as an afterthought. They protect their retirement accounts more carefully than they protect their minds. They will research investment strategies for hours, but will not walk 20 minutes a day. They will compare insurance plans, but will not challenge themselves to learn something new. Your brain is the account that holds everything else. Without it, the rest does not matter. I am not saying you can control everything. Life has variables. Genetics matter. Accidents happen. But I am saying this. You have more influence than you think. Every book you read, every conversation you engage in, every mile you walk, every night you sleep properly, every purpose you pursue, these are deposits. Small ones, repeated over decades, and those deposits determine whether you remain present in your own life. If you lose your mind, you do not just lose facts. You lose access to yourself, and that is a price too high to ignore. People always want something dramatic, a supplement, a secret exercise, a special trick for dementia prevention that no one else knows about. My students used to beg for shortcuts in calculus, too. There weren't any then, and there aren't any now. This is not about intensity. It is about consistency. Challenge your brain. Stay connected to people. Move your body. Sleep properly. Eat real food. Have something that pulls you out of bed in the morning. None of this is revolutionary. That is exactly why people underestimate it. They think because it is simple, it must not be powerful. But I have lived long enough to see what small choices, repeated for decades, can do. I watched two men retire at the same time. One stopped learning, stopped socializing, stopped moving. The other joined a community group, picked up woodworking, walked every morning at 7 a.m. 10 years later, the difference between them was not subtle. One repeated stories. The other created new ones. That difference did not appear overnight. It accumulated. Healthy aging is built in the ordinary days no one applauds. It is built when you read instead of scrolling, when you walk instead of sitting, when you call someone instead of isolating, when you go to bed on time instead of staying up because you don't feel tired. Your brain responds to patterns. It strengthens what you practice. And if you practice comfort, it will adapt to comfort. If you practice engagement, it will adapt to engagement. You do not need perfect discipline. You need direction. And you need to keep moving in that direction long enough for it to matter. I do not know how many years I have left. Harasu to know. You stop pretending you have endless time. That illusion fades whether you want it to or not. Maybe I have 5 years. Maybe I have 1. Maybe I do not make it to my next birthday. That is not pessimism. That is arithmetic. But here is what I do know, however long I am here. I intend to be present for it. I have watched too many people drift out of their own lives before their bodies gave out. They stopped engaging. They stopped challenging themselves. They stopped showing up. And little by little, the lights dimmed. I am not interested in dimming early. I still have students who need help factoring polynomials. I still have arguments to win at the card table. I still have a grandson who needs to be corrected about history and economics. I still have books I want to read and questions I want answered. That is enough reason for me. People sometimes tell me, "Well, you've beaten the odds." Maybe. Or maybe I simply refuse to surrender to comfort. Staying mentally sharp after 60. After 70. After 80, it is not about fear. It is about participation. Participation in conversations. Participation in movement. Participation in learning. Participation in purpose. I am not here because of luck alone. I am here because for decades I chose engagement over ease, and I am still choosing it. This morning I finished most of my crossword, but 43 across is giving me trouble. Good. Let it give me trouble. That means I am still thinking. And as long as I am thinking, I am still here. Now if you will excuse me, I have work to do. Go use your brain.